Anthony Williams says opinions on patriarch Hannah fraud. She's the one of those trad wife red pill women haters. I was against it at first, but I'm starting to think Jeremy was right about a lot of these influencers. Is this a good time to jump off and talk about this?
Yeah. We can totally talk about this.
So this is actually something I DM'd Melonie about. I DM'd her because I'm so good at the internet. So I didn't know anything about Patriarchy, Hannah, but I obviously over the weekend, there's a lot of stuff on X this last weekend, but there started to be these revelations that this account, which I guess had promoted trad wife content, had been I guess uncovered. She had been saying she was married and had lots of children, and actually she's like a single woman in Arkansas. I had heard some other stuff, but I had to message Melonie and be like, could you please explain this to me, because it's one of those stories that developed. It reminds me of when Secret Lives of Mormon Wives came out, and I didn't watch it, but you would see like memes, or you would see clips, or like you would have a friend that was really into it. I need somebody to explain to me exactly what's going on.
Yeah. So basically, in terms of where I fall into this is we were following each other for a little over a year. I knew her because I was on an X space talking about, I had a video that kind of went viral saying my favorite slur, the F slur, against like the gay stuff going on.
Over here.
well,
I have a viral video.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was an infamously viral. I got a lot of hate, and so they did. Like, I had somebody ask me, "Hey, you want to hop on an X space and talk about it?" Because they had a lot of like Christians on the panel, because some Christians don't like it that I use that word. Then others, like, who are, you know, have a similar mindset to me, think there's nothing wrong with using that word. So we kind of were like having a debate about it, and Patriarchy Hannah was on there and she was talking about it. She kind of was like, you know, she kind of was against it and like spoke on that a little bit, but she was, you know, cordial about it. And we ended up following each other after that X space. And so
can I just ask, like, can you give me background on this person or account? It attracted followers. She's been pretty active in the space for a couple years.
Yeah. So to my knowledge, so that's only when I came in the picture, but apparently like she's been running this account for years now. And so also I want to preface this for everybody that I've forgiven her for this. So like, I'm not saying this in a defamatory way, because she has apologized, but I'm just sharing.
Yeah. And I have it up. We'll read her apology.
Right. Like, so I just wanted to clear that, because I don't want, I just don't want people to be inflammatory before we like get to that, but I'm just offering context of what happened.
Yeah.
So she's had this account for a while. She is saying
what kind of content would she post?
She posted a lot of like trad wife type content, because, you know, she said she was a trad wife. Like, her husband kind of helped her out of a bad situation. To my knowledge, he was like 15 years older than her, something like that, according to her story. And they have like 14 kids. I think, I don't know how many she claimed were like biological or adopted, but I just know she said they had like 14 kids and she was homeschooling the ones that were still school age. And then her husband had an account that would tweet every once in a while and stuff. So she would just post a bunch of, you know, trad wife content, and also just like Bible type content. There was stuff that I would see where I would think, oh, this is super based, this is great. But then there was other stuff where I think, okay, that might be a little extreme, you know, like the whole, oh, I need my husband's permission to do every little thing type thing, where it kind of gets into that realm.
So it wasn't just like, oh, I make sourdough and here's some tips on homeschooling. It was much more like, there are the reasons that you should live this trad wife life. And maybe we should like break down what trad wife means in this context, because like, I think you and I both believe in traditional family values. But
exactly.
The caricature of a trad wife on the internet has sort of like become larger than life.
Yeah. And that's kind of where she was with that, because like, hey, like you said, both of us agree with like a traditional family structure. My mom was stay-at-home mom, homeschooled me and my brothers. Like, I love that she did that. And you know, I think it's a great dynamic. But anyway, but sometimes she would say things that I felt like were a little, where I was like, okay, this is so,
Do
even
you
like someone
remember
like my
any of
mom
them?
wouldn't do it. I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but kind of like where just kind of needing permission from the husband for every tiny little thing. Like
Okay.
and I know like that's not the dynamic my parents have. Like they have like a trust system and like, hey, it, at any
It also
time
seems like
they
it
can.
wouldn't function. Like, if you have to
I
ask your husband
know.
for absolutely everything, like,
Yeah.
how are you
My
gonna get things done? Like, if he's off working and you're home with your
exactly.
kids, like,
My
you gotta make
mom
some
is
decisions.
yeah, my mom is still like an adult, and if she needs to go out, she doesn't have to ask for permission. She can go out to the like she's not going out clubbing or anything like
Mhm.
that. But if she wants to like go get dinner with a friend or something like that, or just anything like that. So she always had like a level of independence there. So there were things like that. And what would happen was that like patriarchy Hannah would be posting about how a wife is supposed to be and how her relationship was. And so there was a lot of that. And I guess the problem felt like, especially hindsight 2020 now, to where she would be using her life and her situation and her marriage as an example of how people are supposed to be. But then
Mm,
when you find out, hey, this was fake the entire time, she didn't have a husband.
yeah.
And she actually was and I'm not going to give all the details because they actually have her identity and all that kind of stuff. And hey, she's already apologized. So I don't really need to.
And everyone who's, like, wanting to deep dive, I'm sure you can, like,
You
look
can
it
already
up.
find that, yeah. But turns out, she was a 37-year-old woman who is single, lives with her mom, I believe. Doesn't have a husband, doesn't have kids, and she was just kind of LARPing. And this account just blew up in terms of like
Mhm.
she has like over 25,000 followers or something for somebody who started just here, let me like make this fake identity for fun, and then
Right.
all of a sudden it blew up.
So,
So yeah.
I heard that it came out, like, I'm gonna ask you in a second, like, how did this come out, or what were the initial reactions from people who knew her? But she ultimately, the story kind of broke end of last week, and yesterday, just before midnight, she put up this statement. I'm going to read part of it just to
Okay.
give the context, because to me, so much of this felt like a weird catfish. Like,
Oh
there are
yeah.
parody accounts on X that are like, sometimes people mistake them for being real, and they're like,
Right.
"That's a great point," and then we all laugh. So you're like, "This is an account like that's making fun of being super progressive or
Exactly.
whatever." But
Yeah.
she seemed to present herself, from what I understand, as like, "I really am this," and like you're saying, like, "My
Oh,
marriage is a standard you should
she
live up
was.
to."
And she was actually in Discord groups with other like trad women, housewives, stuff like that. I wasn't in those groups because I'm not a housewife. Like I'm in a
Not
different.
yet, but the applications are
Yeah,
coming
not
in for
yet.
husband.
Applications are open. I will accept applications, but
Email
I'm
them
not.
to Jeremy.
Yes, but I'm not a housewife at
Mhm.
present. So I wasn't in these. So I do understand why some people were really hurt by what she did, because they actually talked to her a lot on a regular
Mhm.
basis, or she even knew personal details about them, and that
Right.
and when you learn that somebody has been lying about their entire identity, then
Yeah.
yeah, you think, wow, this is somebody I trusted with personal things that I wouldn't want everyone to know. Then that is a
Especially if
scary
you're
thing.
someone who's, like, looking for guidance and you felt like this was a role model.
Exactly. And that's
Uh,
that's that's definitely. And for me, I think when I first saw this stuff, my first inclination was like, I don't know if I believe it right away, because I had such a hard time rectifying, like, how can somebody post Bible verses every day and do
mhm.
this? Like, how is
Right,
that
it's, like,
possible? Yeah.
crazy dedication to this bit, and again, for me, like, as I watched this story unfold from a distance, because again, I didn't really follow her content, it was sort of like, well, was this malicious? Like, ultimately, she's like, "Haha,
Right.
gotcha, I actually live this completely opposite lifestyle, um, and
It's just
I've been laughing at you," or was it like someone who is lonely and wants to
exactly.
live like this, and it started as like a, like, pretend game and ultimately turned
Yeah.
into catfishing?
It
So
it
to
it
read, go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, go ahead. Oh, no, I was just gonna
I
say
was
it
just gonna,
took me going through a lot of these threads and stuff going about it before I like fully okay. And then I believed it. I was like, okay,
yeah.
I didn't put her on blast or anything, because I felt like in this case, the truth was already being revealed. And hey, I think it's good that the truth was revealed because people don't need to continue to be fooled by somebody.
Right.
So it's good that they exposed the truth. But I felt like for me to just jump in on that dog pile wouldn't have been productive because the truth was already out there. And there was no added benefit for me to kind of like harp on that. So
Mhm.
I didn't, but I was like, oh wow, this is insane. And deep down I was like, I hope she does apologize because she can't apologize for this. We don't know her actual intentions. Like maybe she was just like this super lonely person who created this identity of what in her head was her dream life. All of a sudden it blew up and she's like,
Yeah. Okay. So she kind of says something like that in this reply. So, or in this message. So last night she put up, I just want to say that I'm sorry for the lies I told and hurt I caused. I never intended for this account to become as big as it did. And once things started snowballing, I really enjoyed the relationship I'd built and didn't know how to put an end to it. It was wrong of me. I have repented of this behavior and will not be back on X. I'm sorry to everyone I hurt with my lies. Some of the things that have been said are true, and some of the things are wildly inaccurate, but I don't see a point in sorting it all out. The bottom line is that I am not who I pretended myself to be. I'm not going to be giving any reasons for why I started because I am not looking for sympathy here. It was wrong. And I humbly hope that you can all find it in your hearts to forgive me in the future. Please stop reaching out to my family. They are aware of the situation, but are very freaked out by people trying to make contact with them. They didn't do anything to deserve this attention. I'm sure you understand.
Yeah.
So it kind of is what you're saying. Like she said, she started this account. She doesn't tell us why she started this account, but it got bigger. And at that point, she was sort of emotionally invested in it.
Exactly. And there is, and this is something that actually could be studied by like psychologists and stuff, because
Yes.
I have seen something like this happen before. Like when I was a teenager, I would post on forums all the time before social media is what it is today. And so I do remember just like being on this one gaming forum every day. And there were, it was small compared to what social media is now, but there was still, hundreds of people on there. And so we posted there like every day almost, so you get to know people in that little community. And so there we kind of put the puzzle pieces together that there was this one guy who was putting it was had a fake life essentially, to where I think that he would post pictures and stuff of himself, and I think those were real. So he was actually being honest about himself, but he had like this, oh, this is my wife, this is my, and then he wasn't even married. He didn't live where he said he lived. He actually lived in Canada. He wasn't some like super businessman and this and that. So he had this fake life he was portraying. Nobody actually really called him out on it. But I remember at that time.
If you're saying you live in Canada or you're a businessman, like, does it matter for like the video game you're playing?
Right,
Maybe
exactly.
not. But it does, like, it is weird to just be like randomly lying about it.
It is. So I think that there is some sort of psychological component to people who do these things, to where, and I'm not justifying it, it's still wrong to do, to mislead people and to lie to people, especially when you're giving them advice or telling them how to live when you are living a lie. And that's the thing, is lies always catch up to people. That's why if you lie, it will catch up to you at some point in your life. Like, it's gonna happen. And so so yeah, but I think that there's something psychologically there. And with her, my best guess is just like, hey, she's sad, she's lonely. She created this fake life online that was like her dream life. She would even share like text messages between her and her husband, or her and her grown sons. But she had to fake. Yeah. And I remember even seeing them and being like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, because you read it and it sounds so sweet. Yeah. And so it's something that, it was a life that she wanted. And for me, and maybe I'm naive, but my reaction to this was to just, I wanted to forgive her. And even though she didn't really do, like, I've been like mutuals with her for like a year, but like I didn't give her a bunch of personal info or anything like that. So I can understand why some people would be more hesitant, because they
feel more betrayed.
They feel betrayed. Yeah. At the end of the day, she didn't betray me personally, but I'm just like, hey, when I see this, I see somebody who, she got exposed as she should have, but I also don't like dogpiling people when they're down. And as somebody who has been canceled, I haven't like lied about my identity or anything like that, but as somebody who's been canceled for saying the F slur, or for, the whole COVID stuff because I didn't get the vaccine and all that. And when you lose almost everybody, it's a very hard thing to go through.
Yeah. You're definitely someone who's in a position where people will make a lot of assessment, judgments about you because of things they read or interpret.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when I see people who have had that happen, even in this case with her being in the wrong, she did apologize, and this was a good apology, I think. So I want to be that. I want to be somebody who can say, hey, if you need a friend, I will be your friend. And and I would want to be able to encourage her, because clearly she knows about the Bible. She's posted about it so much. She clearly wasn't living it. But who's to say she can't, right? That she can't be redeemed from this. Every single one of us have done wrong things, Yeah. So I just wanted to be there for her, because I'm telling you, when somebody's already down to even do this in the first place, we don't know. She could kill herself or something. You just don't know. And that, when people get canceled and stuff like that, that's always in the back of my mind of what if this person does something like that?
Yeah, you don't want people to harm themselves over mistakes.
Exactly.
So do you think that the backlash online is getting overblown? There are people who are jumping on the bandwagon of because I saw stuff that was she pretended to be a trad wife and she's actually this 36-year-old, and that's so sad. But then there are other people who seem very much like you're saying, they maybe had more personal interaction with her.
Right.
It seemed like maybe there's some people that she had gotten into, Twitter fights with, calling people out, who are you called me out on this, but you you were actually living a lie. Do you think that the outrage is going to simmer down now that she's addressed it, or do you think that sort of wound will last for a while?
Well, what I hope she does is I hope she goes to these people personally and apologizes. I can understand them being upset to a degree, because she, on that X space, she spoke against me, and because I said the F slur and all that, but it wasn't overblown enough for me to really hold any resentment on that. Now, when I first started seeing this stuff, and I was like, that's it clicked in my head of, she told me that I wasn't being ladylike because I say the F slur, and here she is doing this. So of course that crosses your mind and stuff. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I can't help but feel sorry for her, and I want to be there for her. And that's the thing, is a lot of people in the comments have forgiven her, even people that she's personally wronged. I do like to see that. I like to see, with this being such a Christian community that was in her circle, there are a lot of forgiving people there for her, and that are like, hey, you don't have to leave if you just want to be yourself. We still want to be your friend, And I think that's a good thing. I do understand why some people are hesitant, and I'm not saying people should trust her. You probably shouldn't, especially you shouldn't give her any personal information. But yeah, just the very act of, okay, she's given a good apology. Some people are like, hey, you're being naive. She doesn't mean it. She's already demonstrated. Maybe that's true, but I just don't want to.
You don't have to forget. It's you can forgive someone and still be but I have to treat you, I'm not going to trust you the same way, or don't return to posting about trad content now that we know about these things.
She's definitely not in a position to be telling people how to live when she's done this, So I think that, I think the consequences of that will be, she'll either get off X altogether, or maybe she just needs to change the way that she speaks about things. And but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people are forgiving her, but still be careful.
Do you think that there are any I think that there are some people who celebrate this story because they don't like the concept of trad wives. And again, I'm almost talking about the caricature of trad wives, which it seems in some way she played into.
She did.
Because, I think especially more progressive or left-wing talking heads on X they look at the concept of a trad wife and say oh, it's this, naive group of women who are celebrating values that are actually bad and oppress them, and they don't
Right.
understand all of these things. Or they're like cosplaying, like Ballerina Farms always gets in trouble because she like posts pictures of herself looking beautiful and milking cows, and they're like, that's
Yeah.
not even, you're making it seem great and it's not great. So for some people, like finding out that this person is a fraud is like a victory. It's like, see, no, trad wife
Oh,
life is fake and not real and also bad for you.
exactly. So I definitely think there's a lot of those people, and there are a lot of the people who are still mad at her or who don't want people to forgive her. Um, I find that a lot of people who have been still just like on the dog pile after her apology have been people that she hasn't even personally interacted with. A
Mhm.
huge chunk of them, or even some like liberals and stuff who just want to, oh, but you said this about gay people, and they want to use that to try to,
It's
you
like you can't
know,
really take anything she said seriously because it turned out
right.
it was like
Yeah.
a character almost.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, she
so
did type them, but I guess that's the weird thing about sort of catfishing social media. Like that person is responsible for the damages they cause. On the other hand, like you can't really take her like advice or whatever seriously.
exactly. So I mean, yeah, that's the thing is I do think that what she's done here in this whole scandal definitely doesn't look good for the trad community, and the this definitely hurt like the Christian community to a degree of like, hey, when people do stuff like this, it makes us look bad. But
Mhm.
but there is redemption, a path to redemption, and
Yeah.
I hope that she's genuine and that she's there. At the end of the day, finding out the truth is always a good thing, because then if this wouldn't have happened, then she would have kept continuing the lie. And so that's one thing that I hope she realizes, as hard as this has been for her to go through emotionally, it was, at the end of the day, she did do it to herself, but also it needed to happen for her to even be on any sort of redemption path. Because if she continued to live a lie and continued to lie to people, then she's going to continue to be living in that sin, and
Mm.
she's not going to get the forgiveness that she needs if she's not repentant. So this will help her at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Like, if she actually acts correctly and responds correctly to it.
Right. And I think this is one of the dangers of social media, just more broadly. She's not the
Oh
only
yeah.
person who is creating an account that gains popularity that is reflective of content that people want
Yeah.
to consume. There's obviously a desire for it, but is not actually reflective of the life that they are truly living. Um,
Exactly. And it
which
just
is
shows
you just have
anybody
to take
can
everything with a
lie.
grain of salt. Yeah.
Yeah, anybody can lie, and that's why it's just like, uh, it's just crazy. Like there are people that you can meet in person, and I'm sure a lot of us have had this happen in real life, where it's like somebody that you actually know in person, and then you just find out what they're actually doing behind closed doors, or like mask off, and you find out how they're really like, and it's like, whoa, I
Mhm.
never would have believed that about them.
Yeah.
So yeah, this happens even to people who show their identity.
Yeah, I mean, people can write anything on Twitter, especially if they know you're gonna celebrate it. Like, I've seen this happen
Exactly.
a lot where someone will be like, "Oh, I'm very pro whatever this issue is," or like very pro family or something like that. And then you're like, "But I have also seen the way you live your life, and I see the way you
Yeah.
treat the people in your life, and like that doesn't seem to line up."
Yeah.
I don't know that it's my job to like publicly
Right.
call you out on it. On the other
Exactly.
hand, it's that's still a little bit, it's
Yeah.
not good, and it's like it's like one step away from what happened here, and I think it's happened on other accounts where it's like, this is actually a faceless account, so there's even
Yeah.
fewer checks on quality control or, like, the authenticity of it. People just ultimately get ensnared in the content and the back and forth.
Yeah,
Uh,
and this happens on like the woke side with people too
oh,
all
yeah.
the time.
It's not just a conservative or Christian or whatever,
Exactly.
like, this
I've
happens everywhere.
seen it. I've seen people who like that I've known from like the gaming streaming industry and all that kind of stuff, who just jumped on the opportunity to throw me under the bus for some likes on Twitter and for some clout.
Mhm.
And I have personally had conversations with these people where they've been gossiping about so and so and calling them the N-word and all that. It's like, hmm, this person is going after me for this or that, but I've heard them say this and that. And
Yeah.
some people are like, well, why don't you talk about it? Why don't I just
What are you gonna
I
do? Like,
I
how
don't
would
want
that
to.
serve
Yeah, it's like
anybody?
that's how I feel. It's like I don't feel any. need to do that.
And,
Also, I just don't
like
like going for revenge. It's not my thing.
in the public forum, right? Like you were saying, you had to read through a lot of these threads of people talking about what happened to sort of come to your own conclusion about whether the allegations against Patriarchy Hannah were authentic or not, which means that there were people who were
Exactly.
like on the defensive for both sides. Like some people were like, yes, this is totally fake, and some people were defending her. Like I don't know that Twitter is the best forum all the
I
time.
know.
There are times when it is useful to have the public call out and see the reaction, but you know,
For
if
sure.
interpersonally you're trying to repair something.
Yeah, that's the
Like
thing.
Melonie and I are gonna have beef, and I'm gonna be on X like, Melonie, how could you do this to me?
Exactly. Like that's the thing is it's like at what point is it productive to air this out publicly? With this
Mhm.
Patriarchy Hannah thing, people needed to know because she created a false image and that's all of her followers were.
And if they're giving her personal information, then
Right,
it can
yeah.
be
So they
dangerous.
needed to know. But whenever it's like, okay, somebody that I used to work with in the gaming industry doesn't like me, at what point is me exposing that they did this, that, or the other that would get them canceled in the industry, would make them lose their jobs? Like, what is that? How's that going to be productive? Is that going to help anybody?
Right.
No. So I don't do it. I don't feel the
Yeah.
need.